Tywin Lannister is a man defined by power. Power in his actions, power in his decisions, power in the way he commands the room. But is Tywin Lannister evil? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of one of the most formidable characters in A Song of Ice and Fire to answer that question. We'll explore the cold, calculating nature of his decisions, the impact of his quest for legacy, and the lengths to which he will go to maintain his family's dominance. This isn't just a recount of his deeds. This is an examination of what drives Tywin, of how a man who so fervently believes in order and stability can also be responsible for such horrific acts of cruelty. Welcome to Examining Evil, where we delve into the darkest aspects of the characters that define Westeros. Today we ask, what makes Tywin Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, a master of cruelty and manipulation, and is that enough to label him as evil? Section 1. The Roots of Ruthlessness. Tywin's cruelty didn't spring out of nowhere. It's vital to understand the world that shaped him. Growing up under the shadow of Tytos Lannister, an incompetent and weak father, Tywin watched as the Lannister name crumbled into mockery. Vassals disrespected the once powerful house, debts piled up, and the great lions of the West became little more than a laughingstock. Tywin internalized these humiliations, and from a young age, he resolved that he would never allow his family to be humiliated again. This trauma planted the seeds of Tywin's philosophy, that only through sheer power and control could he restore the honor of House Lannister. His obsession with erasing his father's weakness would come to define every decision he made. But does this excuse his brutality, or is it the very reason for it? The line between necessity and cruelty begins to blur. Section 2. A calculated mind, not an emotional one. Tywin's approach to life is one of cold, calculated logic. While others may rule with emotion, Tywin's decisions are always ruthlessly pragmatic. Take, for example, his role in the infamous Red Wedding. His plan to annihilate House Stark through treachery wasn't born out of hate or revenge. It was pure strategy. He understood that the war could not be won on the battlefield alone, and to secure the future of the Lannisters, he needed to eliminate their greatest threat without risking his own forces. But here's the question. Does a lack of emotional motivation make Tywin's cruelty any less evil? Or does it make him even more dangerous because he's willing to cross any line for the sake of winning? The Red Wedding is one of the most harrowing betrayals in the series, and Tywin orchestrated it with surgical precision. He didn't relish in the slaughter. He didn't enjoy it. But it happened because he deemed it necessary. Section 3. The Legacy Obsession. Tywin's obsession with legacy fuels much of his behavior. Every move he makes, from his brutal suppression of vassals like the Rains to his manipulation of marriages, is about securing the Lannister name for generations to come. He views his children not as individuals with their own desires, but as tools to extend his influence. This is particularly evident in his treatment of Tyrion, whom Tywin views as a stain on his legacy rather than a son. In one of the most pivotal confrontations between Tyrion and Tywin, Tywin chillingly tells him, "You are no son of mine." This statement cuts to the core of Tywin's belief system. Family is not about love, but about image and power. To Tywin, Tyrion's existence, his physical deformity, his perceived weakness, is an affront to the image he has built. But it raises a larger question. Can a man who places the survival of his family above all else truly be considered evil? Or is he simply a victim of his own upbringing, unable to see that power isn't everything? Section 4. The Fear Factor. One of the most significant ways Tywin exerts control is through fear. Lords, ladies, and even his own children are afraid of him. His ability to maintain his power hinges on this fear. When he raises the Castamere, eliminating House Rain down to the last man, woman, and child, it's not just about revenge. It's a message. Cross Tywin Lannister, and you will be destroyed utterly. This tactic works. House Lannister becomes the most feared house in the realm, and Tywin ensures no one ever dares to challenge them again. But is ruling through fear sustainable? And is it inherently evil to instill terror to maintain control? The Rains of Castamere became a legend in their deaths, but Tywin's willingness to use such extreme methods showcases a heart devoid of mercy. Section 5. Twisted Justifications. At every step, Tywin rationalizes his actions. He doesn't see himself as evil. He sees himself as necessary. He believes he's restoring order to a world teetering on chaos. But Tywin's view of order often comes at the cost of human life. His justification for the Red Wedding, for the destruction of House Rain, and for his cold treatment of his children always comes back to his belief that these acts were for the greater good of the family and the realm. Here lies the core of Tywin's moral complexity. Is a man evil if he commits atrocities in the name of stability? Or is it the very act of rationalizing these brutalities that makes him evil? Tywin never questions the cost of his actions, not the ethical cost, at least. For him, morality is secondary to survival. Section 6. Manipulation and Control. Tywin is a master manipulator, and his ability to control others from behind the scenes is part of what makes him so dangerous. We see this in his manipulation of the War of the Five Kings. He waits, letting other houses exhaust themselves, and only then strikes. This ability to pull strings from the shadows ensures that he remains untouchable while others bleed on the battlefield. But manipulation comes with a price. Tywin's need for control alienates those closest to him. His children, Jaime, Cersei, and Tyrion, are all scarred by his coldness and domination. It's a pattern that repeats throughout the story. The more Tywin tightens his grip, the more those he seeks to control slip away from him. Can we consider a man evil who's destroying his own family in the name of protecting it? Section 7. The warping of his children. Perhaps one of the most telling signs of Tywin's evil is the way his philosophy warps his children. Jaime, Cersei, and Tyrion all inherit different aspects of Tywin's ruthlessness. Jaime becomes a man willing to break oaths to protect his family, though he struggles with the moral consequences. Cersei becomes a reflection of Tywin's ambition, but without his restraint, leading her down a path of paranoia and self-destruction. Tyrion, though despised by Tywin, becomes the sharpest mirror of his father's cunning. Tywin may have tried to mold his children into perfect extensions of himself, but the result is a family broken by cruelty and mistrust. His legacy lives on, but at what cost? His failure as a father is perhaps his greatest moral failing, one that highlights the true depth of his evil. Section 8. Historical Parallels. The Machiavellian Leader. Tywin can be seen as a figure straight out of Machiavelli's The Prince. His methods mirror those of real-world rulers who believed that the ends justify the means. Like Machiavelli's ideal ruler, Tywin believes that being feared is more important than being loved. He exemplifies the philosophy that power must be maintained at all costs, and that morality is a luxury afforded only to the weak. But Machiavelli's philosophy raises another important question. If Tywin's goal was to maintain stability and protect his family, does that absolve him of the evil he committed along the way? Or does it make him all the more culpable, knowing that he actively chose to embrace these methods? Section 9. The Internal Struggle. Does Tywin feel guilt? Tywin rarely shows signs of internal conflict, but that doesn't mean it isn't there. In rare moments, we catch glimpses of a man burdened by the weight of his decisions. His relationship with his dead wife, Joanna, looms over him, and it's clear that he hasn't fully processed her loss. Some might argue that his cruelty is a way of protecting himself from further emotional pain. However, Tywin never allows this potential for vulnerability to surface. Instead, he suppresses it in favor of pragmatism. By choosing power over personal connection, he buries any hope of redemption beneath layers of pride and arrogance. His internal struggle, if it exists, is buried so deep that it never has a chance to affect his outward actions. Section 10. The power dynamic with the crown. Tywin's relationship with the crown further complicates his morality. Though he serves as Hand of the King for both Aerys II and his grandson Joffrey, it's clear that Tywin wields the real power. Under King Aerys, Tywin manages the realm while allowing Aerys to spiral into madness. His decision not to act against the king, even when Aerys commits unspeakable acts, reflects Tywin's pragmatic approach to power. But does his inaction in the face of Aerys' cruelty make him complicit? Tywin's strategy of waiting until it's most advantageous to act results in countless deaths and destruction. His moral calculus, that the Lannisters' survival outweighs the suffering of others, adds yet another layer to the question of his evil. Section 11. Society's role in shaping Tywin. Tywin Lannister is very much a product of Westerosi society. The feudal system, the importance of legacy, and the brutal nature of power in this world shaped his worldview. In a society where strength is equated with survival, Tywin's ruthlessness could be seen as a natural response to the environment he was born into. The societal pressure to maintain House Lannister's position at all costs weighs heavily on his shoulders. But can we excuse evil behavior simply because the world around him is also cruel? Tywin represents a certain breed of Westerosi nobility that sees the suffering of others as an acceptable sacrifice for the greater good. In this context, Tywin is not an anomaly. He's a reflection of the very system he seeks to control. Section 12. The cost of Tywin's actions. For all of Tywin's successes, his pursuit of power comes with devastating consequences. By the end of his life, the Lannisters are more fractured than ever. Jaime's disillusionment with his father, Cersei's paranoia, and Tyrion's eventual betrayal are all direct results of Tywin's iron-fisted rule. The very legacy he sought to protect crumbles in his absence, proving that his methods, while effective in the short term, were unsustainable in the long run. The personal cost of Tywin's actions is perhaps his greatest tragedy. He dies believing he has secured the Lannister name, but in truth, he leaves behind a broken family and a kingdom teetering on the brink of chaos. Section 13. How others perceive him. To many in Westeros, Tywin Lannister is the ultimate ruler, a man who gets results. His reputation is one of respect mixed with fear. Characters like Kevan Lannister and even the late King Robert recognized Tywin's prowess as a leader. However, to those closer to him, Tywin's coldness and ambition are seen in a much darker light. Jaime, Cersei, and Tyrion, the people who should have loved him the most, grow to resent him. This disconnect between how Tywin is perceived by the world and how he is perceived by his family speaks to his moral complexity. On the surface, he's a man who saved the Lannisters. But dig deeper, and we see a man whose pursuit of power alienated those he sought to protect. Section 14. A legacy of fear and respect. Tywin's death, shot by his own son while sitting on the privy, is a fitting end for a man who controlled everything except his own family. His death marks a turning point in Westeros, the removal of a figure who, for better or worse, held the realm together. The chaos that follows his demise speaks to the precarious balance of power he maintained. Even after his death, Tywin's legacy looms large over the narrative. The fear and respect he commanded doesn't die with him. Instead, it haunts those who survive him, particularly Cersei and Tyrion, who each grapple with their father's ghost in different ways. Section 15. Is Tywin Lannister evil? So, is Tywin Lannister evil? The answer, like so much in A Song of Ice and Fire, is not black and white. Tywin embodies many of the traits we associate with evil: ruthlessness, cruelty, and a willingness to sacrifice others for personal gain. But he also possesses qualities that challenge that label: his loyalty to family, his ability to maintain order, and his undeniable intelligence. In the end, Tywin Lannister represents a type of evil that is more terrifying because it is rooted in pragmatism rather than emotion. His actions, while brutal, are always justified in his mind as necessary. And perhaps that is the scariest part of all: an evil that is cold, calculated, and devoid of personal malice, yet no less destructive. Thank you for watching this episode of Examining Evil. Tywin Lannister is a man whose legacy still reverberates through Westeros, and his story challenges us to rethink what we consider evil. What do you think? Was Tywin a necessary evil, or did his actions push him beyond redemption? Let us know in the comments below.